Hey guys, welcome back to NY Sports MC. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Check out my Twitter account at NY Sports MC. I got my buddy from Sunshine Sports Network here with me again tonight. Thank you for coming on. We are going to go through the wide receiver ranking today, but before we get started, I'm going to pass it over to him, let him give a little shout out to his channel and what he's doing over there.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on, man. Appreciate it. It's good to be back on again. It's Sunshine Sports Network. It's a Dolphins-based channel, but I do cover a lot of what's going on in the league. Lots of general stuff. If there's any big moves that go on, I try to get as much content out as possible. Mock drafts, trade rumors, all that stuff I try to get out on the channel. So if you're interested, check it out. If you like it, subscribe.
All right. So let's get right into it. It's actually Sports Illustrated has been kind of ranking some of the division in this same facet too, and this is kind of what gave me the idea to do this. And I think we were both in agreement with this as well. And they did a ranking on wide receivers recently too, and it was funny because the Bills were kind of wherever they were, I forget, somewhere in the middle of the pack. And then the Jets, Pats, and Dolphins, in some order, I don't remember, were three of the bottom four teams in the league. And I think that's pretty fair. There's a lot of potential within those bottom three teams. But definitely they have to prove something this year. So we are both in agreement. So we'll just start there. It's a pretty obvious pick, the Buffalo Bills at number one. They make the big addition of Stefon Diggs this offseason. He had 63 catches, 1,132 yards, 6 touchdowns, 78.8 Pro Football Focus grade. You got John Brown right behind him, 72 catches last year, 1,060 yards, 6 touchdowns, 75.8 Pro Football Focus. And then Cole Beasley, 67 out of a slot. 778 yards, 6 touchdowns, 73.6. You got to put him number one just based on last year and based on the addition of Stefon Diggs. I'm going to be interested to see, and I know you want to talk about this, so I'm not going to steal too much of your thunder, but I want to see what Diggs can do outside of Minnesota. I'm not sold that he's a top-end number one or maybe even a number one. I think he's more of a solid number two, but I'll kick it to you because I know you kind of wanted to talk about that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think the Bills are number one in the division. But like you said, I have some hesitation to say Stefon Diggs is a bona fide number one star. He has had the luxury of playing with Adam Thielen for the majority of his career, maybe even his entire career. And Thielen's a beast. Thielen is a number one. Thielen has produced more than Stefon Diggs, in my opinion, in Minnesota for the majority of Stefon's career. And he's also had the luxury of playing with Kirk Cousins, who is a better quarterback than Josh Allen at this moment. Josh Allen might be really good, but this coming season, but he's got some work to do. He's got a lot to prove. So, Diggs, playing in a different, system with a different quarterback, with different receivers around him, it'll be a really telling year to see what he can actually do almost on his own. I mean, not really on his own, but, Buffalo's got a lot of depth. John Brown was really good last season. Cole Beasley was really good last season. And then the depth guys that they have aren't like trash. They're pretty good. So I think, Buffalo's got it on lock. They're good at wide receiver. So they should be a good team. They're going to be an easy playoff team.
And interesting thing I just thought about as well, going back to the last time we collabed together, he is now in a division where the Dolphins and the Pats, at least, I'm not going to put us in that category, not us as the Jets in that category, but he's going to play the Dolphins twice and he's going to play Pats twice. And they have some stellar corners that are going to give him some trouble. So it's going to be interesting to see him go up against these corners 4 times out of his 16 games. And we're really going to see if he can stack up against, Gilmore, who's a top corner in the league, right? So I think that's going to be an interesting facet as well. These corners in this division are very, very good.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so I think we were both in agreement with the team at the bottom of the barrel too, in the New England Patriots. I'll give my quick thoughts first. Obviously, you got Julian Edelman, had 100 catches last year, 1,117 yards, 6 touchdowns, 72 Pro Football Focus grade. You had Sanu, who played half a season with the Patriots last year, 59 catches, 520 yards, 2 touchdowns, 58.8. I was actually surprised at how little production he had when he got traded over to New England. I thought that was a really good move for them when they did it. And I was like, man, watch Sanu's going to have a big second half now with Brady and that offense. And he actually did worse than he was doing in the first half of the year. His production dipped in the second half. He is getting older now. And now you're also going from Brady to Stidham, so we have to see. And then N'Keal Harry, I mean, he's got potential. He was a high draft pick, but ended the first round last year. Was very limited at only 7 games last year. Had 105 yards, 2 touchdowns, 66.6. I think he has some upside potential. Julian Edelman, to me, I think he's going to take a big step back without Tom Brady. So you have Edelman probably taking a step back. Harry, maybe he can live up to potential, but then Sanu, not very good. So I got them at the bottom. What are your thoughts on the Patriots?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's going to be a very, if you're taking a step from Tom Brady to Jared Stidham, who you could consider just a straight up rookie. He's only, played a handful of snaps in the NFL right now. With everybody getting a year older, with Edelman getting a year older. Edelman's, he's over 30, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's 31, 32. And Sanu's getting on the old end. N'Keal Harry I was not impressed with him at all. He was good at, Arizona State, but, last year, he was hurt. He did deal with injury, but he just didn't have separation. He's a slow, big guy. And if you're that, you need to be able to go up and get the ball and high point it if you can't separate. And I just didn't see anything that really made me think that he's going to be anything that good beyond a depth guy. So it's like if you're taking a step from Tom Brady, who you could easily argue is the best quarterback of all time, to Jared Stidham, with everyone getting a year older, it's clearly going to take a hit on your production. So the Patriots, they just could not do anything offensively last year. So I don't see it magically fixing because they didn't do anything to address the wide receiver position. And I was surprised by that. They didn't do anything. Now, they did draft some tight ends that I liked, but yeah, it's going to be a tough year. If you're a Patriots fan, it's going to be a tough year because it's going to be very different. No quarterback that you've been used to. A lot of receivers gone. A lot of receivers older. Edelman's not going to be as good. I think Edelman's good, but I also think he's a product of the system, product of Tom Brady. And now it's going to be just a very big change. I don't see New England doing much of the receiver position.
I think one of the big things that Edelman's going to have to prove is Brady knew exactly when to get him the ball, when he had just enough room to be able to catch, turn, look to locate where he needed to go, hit a hole, and go after it. So that's a lot of timing. That's a lot of chemistry between the two. And to be honest, that's veteran presence, right? He knows the defense as well and able to get him that ball right in stride at the perfect time. It's not going to happen like that with Stidham. Well, he's not initially out of the gate. So he's going to have to work with tighter windows, less of an opportunity to really catch and turn. So I think a lot of those numbers are going to come down for sure this year.
Yeah, totally agree.
So I know everybody's probably sitting here like, well, last time he brought Sunshine Sports Network on, they agreed in every single ranking. And what's the point of having a collab if we're going to keep agreeing? We are not. And we got the top and the bottom out of the way because we are going to debate now the 2 remaining teams, the Miami Dolphins, the New York Jets, who gets that number 2 spot, who takes the number 3. Ryan, I'll let you go first and just talk about your Dolphins and the wide receiver staff.
Yeah, so I've got the Dolphins at number 2 in the division. The Dolphins are an interesting team. I'm going to have a hard time arguing why they are that much better than the Jets, but I'm going to try my best here. The Dolphins, Devante Parker had a breakout season. He was dominant last year. And that was really with nobody helping him. That was, after Preston Williams got hurt, Albert Wilson got hurt, Jakeem Grant got hurt. There were so many guys on injured reserve that just got put on last year and didn't play. So he was really stacking up with guys like Isaiah Ford, Gary Jennings, guys like that who were the number 2s. And, really kind of relying on these other guys to eat up some of the space in the field and absorb some cornerbacks. So the fact that Devante Parker had the season he had with no help and with an aging Ryan Fitzpatrick throwing to him, with some uncertainty with the offensive scheme, I feel it, and no running game. So it's like, you know what the Dolphins are going to do. They can't run. They're going to throw the ball, and they have a horrible offensive line, and they don't have any other receivers. So for Parker to put up the season he did, I thought was really impressive. I don't know how he did not make the Pro Bowl, but he deserved it. I thought he was an all-pro caliber season, in my opinion. But he was just very good. He dominated Gilmore last year. He crushed him. So if he can keep that production up and Fitzpatrick can, have a decent season, or maybe Rosen comes in, something like that, I don't want to, but if Parker can put up that kind of season, you have Preston Williams coming back, and he was really good when he was healthy. Albert Wilson restructured his deal, which I love. I think he's a really good slot guy. Again, I think that the question mark is injury. If these guys can stay healthy on the Dolphins, they're really good. But Devante Parker, super, super injury history in the NFL. Preston Williams hurt his first season. Albert Wilson, lots of injury history. Jakeem Grant, lots of injury history. So it's like there could be a lot of moving pieces, but if they stay in place and they can protect the quarterback enough, I think it could be a nice year for the Dolphins receivers.
Yeah. So I'll go in and just talk a little bit about the Jets, and then we'll kind of try to – maybe we'll go one for one and kind of debate out the positions here. So I'm going to have the Jets at number 2, and I'm going to argue the Jets number 2. Our starting wide receiver core looks like it's going to be Prashad Harrington, who we just brought over from Tampa Bay. And I'm just going to mention a little bit now, and then we'll discuss more. We're going back and forth. They're very comparable. They're very interesting, him and Devante Parker. Perriman, again, a high draft pick, just like Devante Parker. Injury history throughout his career. Really got his first opportunity last year after, funny enough, after a bunch of injuries in front of him, gave him the opportunity to really get a lot of time and a lot of spotlight. He finished the year with 36 catches, 645 yards, 6 touchdowns, and a 72.8 Pro Football Focus rate. And that's with him essentially – I mean, he was out there on the field, but essentially not getting any targets in the beginning of the year behind Mike Evans and Godson. So once they kind of went down and were banged up a little bit, he got a lot of targets and he made the most of them. Then we're going to have the rookie in Denzel Mims, highly rated coming out. I really love his size-speed combination. Some people thought he was a first-round pick. We got him late. A great trade by Joe Douglas, traded back 11 picks and still got the guy that everybody wanted, and was kind of upset that we traded back. And they said, how are we passing up on Mims? And we still got him, got the extra draft pick, and turned it into an extra 3 draft picks, actually. So, and then Jamison Crowder, who I think is one of the best slot corners in the game. 78 catches, 834 yards, 6 touchdowns, 73 Pro Football Focus rate. I think some of this was negatively affected by Sam Darnold's mono last year. You look at week 1, he had like 12 or 13 catches. So he's definitely somebody that Sam Darnold's going to target a lot. I really like the upside potential with the Jets wide receiver crew this year. It's a little more – I would like us to have a solid number 4 guy behind the top 3 because, as you kind of mentioned with the Dolphins, same with us, Perriman has had an injury history. Crowder has had injury history before he came over to us. He was healthy last year for us. So if we take an injury at the wide receiver position, or if Mims takes a little bit longer to develop, we can be in some big trouble with talent on the outside. But I really like the top 3 guys. So yeah, I want to let's go through it here. Let's start with the wide receiver number 1s, or at least who our team's number 1 wide receivers are. Devante Parker versus Prashad Harrington. I'll let you kick it off. Why is Parker over Perriman?
I think Parker's just got more of the – he's just got an it factor. I like when he really gets in the zone. I mean, you saw this most of last year. I'm talking career-wise. I mean, he didn't do a lot his whole career. And I think last year when they gave him that kind of prove-it deal, just show us what you can do and we'll extend you, he balled. And I like to see the attitude, that like intensity that he brought to the field. And I haven't seen a lot of that in Prashad Perriman. Now, that could change, and that he could be way different. He's got the physical skill set. That's clear. He's a physically very gifted guy, great genetics. But, Parker's got the same. I just think that Parker's a little bit better at high pointing the ball. I think he's a little bit better at his coordination with his hands. I think getting around cornerbacks is a little bit better. I think Perriman might be a little bit better at muscling guys out of the way. He's just a bigger, stronger guy. But I think Parker is just a little bit more gifted in terms of where to high point the ball, how to get it in his hands, how to have some body control. So that's my opinion. I think Parker's better, but it could be a lot of question marks if he doesn't stay healthy.
Right. And on this one, I'm going to agree with you because I like the comparison between these two because, like I kind of briefly mentioned, they were both very high picks. They were both very disappointing early in their career, not living up to their draft status. Perriman, a lot of injuries in the past, is on his now, 3rd or 4th team. So that's not always good for a younger player. But The thing is, I think Parker has all the ability in the world. I really think he probably has the most physically gifted, talented person in the division at the position. And he showed that last year, 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. He had the highest Pro Football Focus grade at 79.2. The thing with these two is they have to show us consistency. So Parker has to show us that he can do it another season, right? A second time. And Perriman has to show us that 6 games or 4 games, whatever it was, that he really blew up the scene wasn't just a product of that Bruce Arians system. And it was the fact that he finally now was healthy, had his confidence back, because he admitted that early in his career, he was rattled a little bit. Think about it, coming in as a high pick. He was one of those guys that kind of jumped up the boards because of his combine. And some people were already questioning, did he get overpicked? And then he comes in, he's battling injuries, has a few bad drops in his first few years, and really psyched himself out. And I forget who he credited, but he did credit an individual, a coach or something like that, for really being able to have a breakthrough with him and get him back to the confidence level that he had. And he finally got his opportunity last year and really showed something. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can prove that he's worth it. And that's why I love the 1-year deal for him, kind of similar to what you were saying about what you guys did with Parker last year. It's a prove-it deal. And if he ends up blowing up, we could franchise tag him. We can sign him to a long-term deal. We can do a lot of different things. We have him in our building. So I would give the edge there to Parker at the wide receiver number 1. We'll slide to wide receiver number 2. I'm going to be honest, I didn't know much about Preston Williams. I know he had that one big game against us where he had 2 touchdowns. And he did tear his ACL, miss some games. I was trying to look up before you. I'll let you kind of speak on it. I don't know where he's at in his recovery on that, if he's going to even be ready for the start of the year or not. But Denzel Mims, to me, I have a lot of faith and confidence in him. I think he can be a true number 1 for us given time. I don't think it's going to happen this year. But with that size and speed and some of the ridiculous catches I've seen from Mims in college, I'm going to give him the edge. He is the one that came out with a much higher pedigree. Preston Williams was an undrafted free agent last year. And, the one thing on Mims is a lot of people talk about his drops in college. He had 1 year where he had like double the drops he had the rest of his career. And you want to say some people say it's an excuse, some not. He was playing with a broken hand, right? So you love that toughness, that grit. If you take out that year and just look at last year, or just look at last year and the year before that, because it was 2 years ago that he had the hand injury, he had the same drop rate as all these top guys, Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb. So I don't think the drops are going to be an issue. I think with him, it's refining the route running. And with Sean Jefferson and Hines Ward as his wide receiver coaches, I hope that Hines Ward is right up his backside the whole time, really coaching him up the whole way, because we knew Hines Ward was a technician when it came to that. So I have a lot of confidence. I would have Mims as a bump over Preston Williams. I'll let you go ahead with those 2.
Yeah, so Mims is talented. He's a talented guy. The only question mark that I have about Mims, I think you almost described what I see Denzel Mims being in Prashad Perriman a little bit, where you say good in college. I wasn't all that blown away or impressed with Mims in college. He didn't produce all that much at Baylor. When I look at his stats, when I looked at some of his tape, I remember doing my draft, my mock draft, and looking at him, and some people were mocking it. This was like just before the combine, and when I was starting to do the research for my mock draft, and I saw a few people mocking him to the first round a little bit later, and I was like, I don't see it, man. I just don't. Like, he didn't produce much. If he's a first round talent guy, if he's a number 1 guy, then why didn't he produce much in college? It was a very an inconsistent college career, and I just didn't. And then he blows up the combine, and then it's like, oh my God, Denzel Mims is the guy. 6'3", he ran a 4.4. He's got good hands. He's fast. He's big. He can do everything you want him to do. And you could say the same thing that you said about Perryman, where he blew up the combine. Denzel Mims is a ridiculous wide receiver in the combine. But how he'll fare against, the cornerbacks in the AFC East, which are very good, I think is going to be a question mark. And I think I'm really trying not to be like a homer with saying that I think Preston Williams is just going to be better. But I think that extra year of experience in the NFL just might give Preston Williams a slight bump. I don't think that Preston Williams is a number 1 guy. I think that Denzel Mims has potential. but we just haven't seen anything. So it's kind of hard to compare him to somebody who's already been in the league, even with Preston Williams' injury and the inconsistency of being on the football field. When he was on the field, he was really good. He absolutely dominated their preseason games. And then coming into the season, before he got hurt, he was the number one guy. He was the number one receiver, and Parker was kind of taking a second, a second on the depth chart role. And I didn't like that. I wanted Parker to be the number one guy, and he wound up being. But before Williams got hurt, he was the number one guy. He was playing really well. So it's kind of tough. I want to give Williams the edge just because of that extra year in the NFL, and he's gone up against the NFL talent, and Mims just hasn't yet. But like I said, it's hard to compare because Mims has potential, but I just haven't seen anything on an NFL football field with NFL caliber cornerbacks.
Do you know anything about how Preston is progressing from that torn ACL?
Yeah, the last I read, he was right at the tail end of his recovery, so he should be good to go by the beginning of the season. It really kind of depends on with everything going on in the world, how training camps go and all that stuff, what the scheduling is going to look like. Because they've been talking about shortening up the preseason and kind of compare. I think it was 2011 when they did the lockout season where it was just a real shortened type of thing. So that might be it. So I guess it kind of all depends on how the season moves on. But the last that I saw, he was going ahead pretty well. So he should be good to go by the start of the season.
Okay. Yeah, I actually did a little video on that as a part of a bunch of updates I did yesterday. They're looking to reduce it to 2 games, to more or less to give the teams more time to work together since they haven't had any mini camps in person where they can be on the field. And I was saying yesterday, it's got to be tough for these teams that have – for us, we have all new offensive linemen, so that's going to be tough for us. But look at a team like the Giants, right? They have all new coaching staff, all new playbooks. So it's one thing to go over it virtually, study your playbook. It's another to be on the field and actually walk through it. So I was a big proponent of saying, hey, why don't you just start training camp like a week early or so? But this is an even better idea. These players, get them the time in practice. They don't need the 4 preseason games. It may hurt some of the guys like a Preston Williams from last year, right? These undrafted guys or these lower-level guys to not have as much game tape. But they'll have practice time, and if they're good enough, they'll show that they have that ability. So, yeah, I think that Denzel Mims and Williams will probably be pretty close when you look at their production for this year. Like I said, I like Mims' upside a little bit more moving forward into the career, and I give him the bump because of Sam Darnold as well. But going to the slot, Jamison Crowder versus Albert Wilson, this is where I don't really think it's close. I like Albert Wilson. Him and Jakeem Grant absolutely destroyed us one game when Gase was your guys' head coach. I don't remember which it was. I think it was in Miami, and they were running all these quick hitters and these reverses and everything. And these 2 little speedy guys, we couldn't stop them at all. So Albert Wilson definitely has some talent there. But like I mentioned when I was just giving my brief synopsis of the Jets, I think Jamison Crowder is one of the best slot wide receivers in the game right now. He has a very good chemistry going with Sam Darnold. They showed that very early in the season. I think that you can see an uptick in what he did last year. He put up 834 yards and 6 touchdowns. That's without Darnold for 3 games where our offense was mediocre. I was actually listening to Colin Cowherd talk about Sam Darnold and just the Jets, and 2 of the 3 games that Darnold didn't play, and we threw for, I think it was 80 or less yards. That's how poor our quarterback play was. Just atrocious. I mean, the guy – it's the first time ever that a guy was a starting quarterback one week and cut before the next game. That just shows you how poor he was. And, I mean, our offensive line didn't do him any favors either, but he was not ready to be an NFL starting quarterback. So I definitely give Crowder the edge. I think, like I said, he's one of the better slots in the game.
Yeah, and this is where I totally agree with you. I like Albert Wilson. I actually really like him for his contract. Before they restructured him, I was like, they absolutely need to trade this guy, cut him, do whatever they have to do, because $11 million to Albert Wilson is an insane overpay. But they restructured him down to 4, if I'm not mistaken. So I like him for his contract. I think he could be a decent option. But, yeah, I agree with you. Jamison Crowder is just a better option. Albert Wilson is also dealing with, still I'm not going to say recovering, but I think he's still kind of reaping the consequences of that hip injury that he suffered. So, and he lost a step. Albert Wilson had a lot of explosiveness and good in the slot. He's real shifty. And then when he hurt his hip, he just kind of came back not necessarily the same guy. And he wasn't as flexible, not as like sharp on his like first cuts and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think with all that, and then considering, I just think Darnold's a better quarterback flat out. So, yeah, Jamison Crowder is easily the better of the two. I think you guys take that one pretty easily.
Yeah, so I'll do like my last kind of words on it, and then I'll let you give your last words on that debate back and forth. So the way I had it, I had Devante Parker over Prashad Perriman. I have Mims with a slight bump over Preston Williams. And then I had Jamison Crowder with a kind of wide margin over Albert Wilson. And then if we want to go a little further outside of the wide receiver, because obviously outside the wide receiver does impact, I think the Jets are much more well-equipped at both the quarterback position and the offensive line position, which could have a big impact on how these wide receivers perform. I had my offensive line video. I really have a lot of question marks about the Dolphins' offensive line. That's why if I was a Dolphins fan, I know you're 100% in support of this. I would not play Tua this year. He could be your franchise. He could be something very special. He's coming off a very horrific injury, and you guys are probably going to have the worst offensive line in the game or one of the worst offensive lines. I would not put him behind that offensive line. So for the reason of Sam Darnold over Fitzpatrick or Fitzmagic and his disappearing act this year and our offensive line, I'm going to give the edge to the Jets wide receivers. But again, like I said, it's really the Bills number one, and then three teams that really just need to prove that they have enough talent to even sustain a successful offense.
Yeah, and I agree with most of what you said. Darnold's definitely better. Your offensive line is going to definitely be much better. The reason why I give the Dolphins one up on the Jets here, I totally agreed. Fitzpatrick is, I mean, you don't know what you're going to get out of him after a good season. So it's a lot in the air. Maybe they give Rosen a shot, but when Rosen was in last year, he just didn't do much. As much as I love Josh Rosen, he didn't show me anything that would make me want to start him. And so if he wasn't able to beat out Fitzpatrick last year, and if he can't beat him out in training camp this year, that's going to say a lot. And then the offensive line is just really bad in Miami. They did whatever they could do, I guess, in a way to sign some offensive linemen, but they did not do enough, in my opinion, to address it in the draft and in free agency. I just feel like they could have done much more. So you guys take it there. The only thing that I think stands out to me is the systems that these receivers are going to be playing in. I just don't like Adam Gase's system. I'm not a believer in Gase, and that's not because he was playing or because he coached the Dolphins and because how things went with us. I just straight up don't like his system. I don't like the bubble screens on 3rd and 10. I just don't like the way that he gets the ball around the field. I feel like it's not thought out very well and just inconsistent. You could have guys who have a ton of talent, but I don't know. I have a hard time believing that Gase is all of a sudden going to have a season with Darnold where all of a sudden, the number one receivers are playing like number one receivers and the offense is coming together. I just don't believe in Gase, and that's not a personal thing against the guy. I think he's a nice guy, but I don't see anything in his system that would direct me to believing that the receivers are going to really perform that well. Especially when you're dealing with an unproven guy like Perriman, you have a rookie in Mims, you've got Darnold, who really is kind of, at least in my opinion, looking like he's on like his last leg, trying to really show that he can be a really good NFL quarterback. And then you got Crowder, who's good, but he'll probably be the number one producing guy, in my opinion, in the system, because Gase really likes to get the ball just short. He loves his slot guys. That's what, Jarvis Landry was super successful in the slot in Miami. Gase uses the slot guys a lot. So I don't know. I just think Chan Gailey's system, when he comes and adjusts things in Miami, I think it's going to be much more of like like an air raid system. They're not going to focus as much on the run game, and it'll lend itself a little bit more to our receivers. And that's just my opinion.
I mean, man, how old is Chan Gailey now? I feel like he's been around forever. Like, he's got to be like 90 almost.
Yeah, he's getting up there. This is his second stint with the Dolphins too, so he's getting up there.
Yeah. So like I said, on that Gase train, I've said this a lot of times on my channel. I'm in a wait and see mode with him. I can't honestly evaluate him based off last year, at least with us. I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt of looking at what he can do with us. Sam Darnold's the best quarterback he's had since Peyton Manning. So I want to see what he can do. Last year was tough. It didn't matter who I wanted to be hired as the head coach. They wouldn't have done much better. We were devastated last year. So the last thing I want to get into before this, kind of turn it over to you, and I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here because we didn't talk about this before. But do you guys have anybody beyond the three that's maybe like a dark horse, somebody you're going to be looking out for in that wide receiver position that you think can maybe be a sneak impact for the Dolphins?
Yeah, actually, I really like Isaiah Ford. He came out last season. He has not had a lot of opportunity last season, a lot of injury, and actually played pretty well. I like his play style. He's got good hands. He runs routes decent enough. It's really going to be a question mark about how the quarterbacks play, about how the offensive line protects their guys. Now, if the rest of the receivers ahead of him stay healthy, maybe he won't produce that much. But I think that if Isaiah Ford is your number 4 guy or number 5 guy, I think you're in a pretty good position because I think he actually played really well. I know a lot of people think that Jakeem Grant's a super good receiver. I'm not sold. I don't like him as a receiver. I like him as like a special teams guy, and that's pretty much it. I just don't. His hands are inconsistent. I don't think he runs that route like the routes as crisp as he could. But Isaiah Ford's got more size. He's got better hands. I just think he could produce more as a receiver. So I liked him last year. I think he'll be good this year if he gets the opportunity to play and gets on the field. I think he'll be a good receiver for sure.
Nice. So I have 2 people that I'm really going to be watching quite a bit, and with the reports coming out when they get to training camp and the preseason. And they've been talked about a lot on Jets channels and in Jets Discords and things like that. But the first one's going to be who's probably projected to be our number 4 receiver, and that's Vincent Smith. He showed some potential last year. It's actually funny, Demaryius Thomas was the big driving force in us even signing Vincent Smith because they had worked together a little bit in Denver, and he kind of vouched for him. And you saw that Gase and that staff and even Darnold trusted him towards the end of the season. They had him running a lot of the go routes. He's got to develop a route tree, and that's why at number 4 or 5 receiver, it's not going to be that much of an issue. He's going to be that specialist that's going to be in there to stretch the defense. But they did design a lot of plays where they were taking shots deep down the field to him. So I can see another year in the system, another year of him kind of honing his skills a little bit. I think he's going to take more of that. Not Robbie from last year, because Robbie did a very good job last year of developing into more than just a deep threat. But if you look the year before that and his rookie season, when he was just kind of that go route runner, I think that's what they're going to do with Vincent Smith and try to bring him in to kind of blow the top off from time to time. And the other guy is a guy I kind of mentioned in my little update video yesterday, and that's Lawrence Cager. If he can stay healthy, the biggest question mark with him is going to be can he get separation at the NFL level, and can he stay healthy? But other than that, he's got that ability to really high point the ball, really go up there and get it. And it was interesting came out that I didn't notice until he came out and said it. He was friends with Darnold since high school. They grew up in neighboring counties. They didn't play together, but they went to a lot of camps together. He said, that's my quarterback. Like they worked out well together. He almost went to USC to play with Sam. It didn't work out. He ended up going to Miami at first and then transferring to Georgia. But so it's good to see that they have that chemistry already, and they've been really good friends for quite some time, and they've worked out quite a bit together. He's kind of my undrafted guy to really watch this year when it comes to playmakers for my Jets. So those are 2 guys that I kind of wanted to keep an eye on for at least the Jets on the wide receiver front.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are good guys. I mean, I like Vincent Smith. I think he can definitely produce. Maybe the receiving core is a little bit more clogged up with Mims, but I think if Smith gets on the field, he's a good option for sure. And giving Darnold another year, maybe it works out more for Darnold this year that he's healthy and something goes right in Gase's system. Vincent Smith is a good receiving option for sure.
All right, so that's how we have it. He's got it Bills, Dolphins, Jets, Pats. I got it Bills, Jets, Dolphins, Pats. But again, it's really the Bills and then a bunch of teams that have a lot to prove at the position. So I'll turn it over to you. Give one last shout out to your channel before we wrap it up here.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So yeah, like I said earlier, it's the Sunshine Sports Network. Small channel, growing channel, but we have a lot of fun. Like I said, just a lot of stuff around the league. Focuses most on the Dolphins. So if you want to get some interdivisional rival, perspective on things, see what I think, then for sure feel free to check it out.
Yes, and thank you again for coming on. So, guys, this was a lot of fun. You guys know that I enjoy doing this a lot, bringing other people on. I want to try to continue bringing other people on and continue to have Sunshine Sports Network on here as well. So if you guys don't know already, please come by Sunday night for our live streams, Sunday at 9 p.m. We just talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. We kind of recap the videos from the week that I made. And make sure to subscribe to Sunshine Sports Network. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Check out my Twitter at NYSportsMC. And as always, Jet up.